Hello and welcome, everyone. This is the Thursday webinar. I'm Gordon Jones, and with me is my colleague Derek Hippa. Hey, Derek.
Hey, Gordon. How are you?
Doing all right. So I'm
Good.
the chief operating officer here, and Derek is a manager in our revenue operations team. So we'll be hosting this discussion today, and it is a discussion. So before we get started, a few plugs. We have our annual, or we don't do it every year. This is the third time, though. We call it Decisions Days. And this coming May 22nd to 24th, it'll be right here in Virginia Beach on the waterfront at the Marriott Oceanfront. So save the date, mark your calendars, be there or be square, as we used to say when I was 6. But that should be a good time. 2.5, 3 days of great content, great training. Everybody will learn a lot, and you get to meet the whole team here at Decisions and other customers, partners as well. And for more information, you can always go to decisions.com/events or decisions.com/training for all of the upcoming webinars, live events, training events, etc. Okay, for today, if you have any questions, use the Q&A, use the chat. We hope that this is a discussion, so feel free to reach out with any questions. And with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So the agenda here is to really talk about this strange business climate that we're in right now. We all read about headcount cuts in tech companies. The interest rates are going up, inflation is going up. Yet at the same time, unemployment is at a record low. So it's kind of a strange economic climate. But companies get nervous, they begin to cut back. So I'm going to talk a bit about the differences between what happens in recessions versus what happens in growth, and how the Decisions platform can help automate and eliminate non-value added work. Oftentimes people purchase Decisions for some big project, and I'll quickly walk through the kinds of projects that we get involved in. But the examples that we're going to use here today, and we have about 8 of them, are small, they're atomic, they automate little pieces, and it's a kind of a different way to think about things. And I'll go through the story of how we use our own platform internally to automate a lot of the sales operations activities that we do here internally. So it's kind of interesting, and I think you'll enjoy it. And it'll be a bit of back and forth between Derek and I explaining what we're automating, and then Derek will show you in the tool how we accomplish that. So that's the agenda. And so yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the kinds of things that companies do in expansionary periods, there's a lot of investment in growth opportunities. Some of those growth opportunities are shotgun experiments. They may or may not pay off. Companies spend a lot on marketing and sales. With low interest rates, there's a lot of money washing around to fund companies that can grow using investor money. But with interest rates going up, there's less of that available. So companies cut back on a lot of these trials, these tests, and rather than investing in these wild cards, there's cost cutting on those things. There's a reduced amount of investment money available. Companies cut back on inventory. They revise pricing strategies and focus on the core business, on things that work. And the examples that we're going to show you here are the kinds of things that exist everywhere in every company. Little small pieces of manual work that can be eliminated to free up resources to do other things. Next slide here, Derek. So what we're going to talk about today is activities that we were doing in our sales and marketing department. So things like lead capture and management, pulling data from various software applications to update our Salesforce. And it's a perfect example of how we can extend and expand the capabilities of these platforms and of these systems. So I'm going to briefly walk through our three most common use cases, and then I'm going to drill in on this orchestration piece. So as we typically say, there's three common automation patterns that we regularly get involved in. And the first is a pure rule engine and decisioning use case. These are in areas like medical claims processing, in the insurance industry, the quote to cash, or in underwriting. And the idea here is that the rules engine is a place to take these rules out of stored procedures, out of spreadsheets, and put them in a graphical format that can be easily understood, updated, created by the users that know the business. And decisions, we are an enterprise class rules engine. We do a lot of high transaction volume work for the city of New York, for Nationwide, for Roche Genentech. So it's kind of pure back-end, high-volume rule engine processing. Our next automation, and that's the story here today, it's integrating and automating connections between various software applications and various services, and then engaging end users when necessary. Oftentimes, we need to connect and integrate different software applications, but we need to do logic in between them. Maybe the data doesn't match up exactly. Maybe we want some logic, and we've got a number of examples to show you how decisions sitting at the core can handle a lot of that logic and a lot of those different rules and connections. So we'll drill into this, but the third use case that I'll mention is kind of a pure workflow automation application. So you can use our UI, you can use our back-end automation to build fully functional applications end to end. And again, most commonly, people buy us for things like this. So one of these three use cases. But today, we're going to drill into the orchestration. And what you see here are four processes that we have in our sales and marketing arena. We're gonna talk about how we enhance leads internally that we get through our website with information from Google Ads and another service called Zoom Info. And then we're going to talk about how once we get those leads from the website, how we distribute those to our business development reps and our account reps. So we have rules that we'll talk about and how we distribute those leads. Then how we can extend and expand our Salesforce with additional capability. We have a couple of internal requests for sales engineering work and a request for a contract that we've built right into Salesforce using decisions. And then finally, how we use decisions as an ETL tool to pull data from our Salesforce, from other applications, save it within our data warehouse for reporting. And the key message here is, let's go to the next slide, Derek. The key message here is that none of these things, I think all of these took from 1 to 5 days to build. So this isn't like a big, monstrous application, but actually a series of small integrations and flows to automate away manual work. So at the center of this is decisions, and it used to be called Crystal, who works in our sales operations department. And at one time, all that we're talking about at one time was manual. And over time, we've just slowly automated away all of these pieces. Crystal still has a job here. In fact, we had to hire another person to help with the workload in other areas. But it's a perfect case in point where if you don't automate, your headcount will grow and the work just never stops. The other interesting thing is, if you had asked me on Monday or last week how many different software applications that we had integrated with in our sales and marketing stack, I would have said, I don't know, 3, 4. And when we started working on this webinar and this example, turns out there's like 16, 17 different applications and services that we're stitching together using decisions. And this is not because we wanted to, or not because we created some big scheme and we had a big automation project. It just happened over time. And the other thing I want to point out is we didn't start with decisions in mind. Uh, a lot of these software applications come with native integrations to Salesforce. It's just that what we found was they don't work the way that we wanted them to work for our business. And I'll get into some of those stories. So again, all of these things are short automations that don't take a lot of time, and you don't have to have a grand master plan to start and take care of them one. You can just do it one at a time, and you'll find that over time you can automate a lot of manual work. All right. Any questions about any of that before I dive into some of these examples? All right. If at any time you have a question or comment, just drop it in the chat, drop it in the Q&A. So the first piece I'm going to talk about is lead enhancement. And so the way this works, and you can go ahead, is when people come to our website, they typically either they go there direct, or they've seen a Google ad that we've spent money on. They click the ad, they go to the website, and then maybe they fill out a form. They want to look at pricing, and this may be how many of you arrived at our website. Or they want to sign up for a demo, and they fill out a form. Well, once they do that, they've kind of converted on the website, and we want to figure out, and with that, we get like with Google Ads, we get this Google Click ID, which we'll show you. And what we want to do is figure out, all right, for that person with that Google Click ID, what search campaign did they come to the website, and what was the search term that they used to find us? Because we want to figure out, how we're spending our marketing dollars and appropriate that spend accordingly. The other thing we do is once we get a lead, we send it to this company, this service called ZoomInfo. And they keep a huge database of contact information for people in companies, all over the country, all over the globe. And what we want to do is enhance, because right now all we have is an email address. We want to enhance it with company information, with phone numbers, with all kinds of other information, so that we can get in touch with that person, and schedule a discussion, schedule a demo, and know who we're talking to. Now, that all sounds great, but we ran into problems. So one of the problem is if that Google information, sometimes it doesn't come over automatically or cleanly using the native integration to Salesforce. Same thing happens with the ZoomInfo data. Oftentimes we'd get nothing back. And so we stuck decisions in the middle, and we created some automations to retry, to go back to ZoomInfo. If we get nothing back, then we strip out the front of the email address. We just send the company information back to ZoomInfo, and then we get all of the company information back. So it's a little bit of extra logic to ensure that we're getting some information back that we can use to populate our Salesforce. So for example, next slide. Here's an example copied straight from our Salesforce of the kind of information. Over to the left, you see that we've gotten an email from somebody, and you see that gclid down here, all this gobbledygook. This is like a cookie that Google drops on our website when somebody comes from Google Ad inbound. So what we do is Derek has built a little automation that grabs that Google Click ID, sends it back to Google Ads, and then we get all this information on the right. Then we figure out, what ad group that was of ours. So it was the workflow. It was a workflow ad word. And then that UTM term there, workflow automation services, or that Google Analytic term, that's what was typed into the search bar at Google where our ad was put forward. So we want to capture this to know how well we're spending our ad spend. Next slide. And here is information based on the company, right? So if somebody logs into our website with an email address, we send their email address to Zoom Info, and we want to know what industry that company does work in, how many employees, what their revenue is, what their revenue range is. And the reason for that is that we've organized our sales team by company size. So we have what we call a commercial team, which is for smaller sized companies, and then we have an enterprise team for large companies. So we want to know how large, what size this company is to know which team to send this lead to. Again, in the past, this was all done manually. Now, through the work with Decisions and Derek's work, we've got this automated to show you how that works. So these are the first two small little use cases. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Derek to show you how we accomplish this automation.
Well, thank you, Gordon. Appreciate it. So yeah, again, kind of just emphasize on what this first use case is. It's really doing a lead enhancement. So it's the point that someone fills out a form and how we handle it from there. So some of the main problems that we did face too is once a lead goes into our marketing enablement tool, Pardot, there is no native integration between Pardot and Zoom Info. And that's typically the first entry point for a lead for us. And we wanted to figure out a way to, be able to enrich that contact or that lead, and then be able to assign it directly to the right person or people on our business development team. And then again, kind of going with the Google Ads piece of it too. So with that Google Click ID, we're able to pass that to Google and get a ton of information back from it as well. We get what campaign they came from, what term they use, but we also get the location of where that click came from. So we get all this enrichment of data that we weren't able to get in the very beginning. So some of that stuff you can't get normally, but by using, the solution of using Decisions to be able to pass that GCLID to Google, we are able to do so. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up my browser and we're going to go directly into the Decisions portal. So just for the people that have not seen the Decisions portal, just a quick little walkthrough. So you can see this is our internal server and I am in our designer view. It's really like a folder structure that contains many subfolders. Within these subfolders, we have the ability to create flows, rules, forms, and integrations. In regards to our marketing tech stack, it is a very large tech stack. And for us to be able to communicate with them, we had to create integrations. So I'll kind of explain the different integrations that we have. So you saw the diagram where we had about 15 to 16 separate software tools that we integrate with. So here's a couple examples of how we organized it. We separated folders for each integration. So you can see that we have 6sense, Google, we have Microsoft Pardot, and Zoom Info. So for this use case, we're really focused on Pardot, Salesforce, Zoom Info, Google, Bing Ads, and then Decisions as the backbone of this whole operation. So when creating integrations and decisions, it's very easy. We are a no-code platform, and we want to make it as easy as possible to be able to create an integration. So all you really need to do is be able to understand which endpoint you're calling. So kind of just doing some research online, you're able to go to Zoom and look at their API references in which we are able to pick up this REST service. Simply, we put in the URL and we describe on the authentication, meaning how decisions going to communicate with Zoom info. And once that is created, you're able to add methods to the service. So a couple of examples that we do here at Decisions with Zoom info is we're able to do a company enrichment. We could also do a contact enrichment. And then there's a couple other ones such as IP address or intent topics. So with this, it's super easy. We're able to add on to that base URL that we defined in the very beginning, define the type of method we're doing. So this is a post call. So we're sending data to Zoom info to receive data back, and really what we want it to look like. So that's a little introduction to the Decisions portal. What I'm going to do now is go into another tab to kind of really describe this lead enhancement process. So for this, we have another folder where we contain all our flows. Within this workflow is on a schedule. Essentially, every 5 minutes, this gets kicked off to pull any brand new leads that come into the system. So in the very beginning of this step, the very first thing we do is we make an API call to Pardot. So when we built that integration over here, just described with these different methods, what happens is Decisions generates a step. So we have the step library, and I'm currently in our workflow designer. Once that integration is defined and built, we have the ability to just drag and drop it over into our workflow designer. Within this other subflow, I'll show you what that looks like. So that method that we were describing, we were referencing Zoom info, so this is Pardot, but we created another method, and essentially it was a step that we were able to pull in. Here it's just asking a couple basic details about what we want to send to Pardot to receive information. So we're saying, hey, grab me any new leads that were created today. Once those leads are into Decisions, we're able to run a couple rules to determine if we need to send them to Google to do additional enrichment. So the second step that we have here is we say, hey, does this lead have G-click, meaning that it clicked on one of our Google ads? If it does, what we do is we send that information to Google by query and say, hey, I have this G-click. Do you have any information on it, on this lead? And if so, what we do is we enhance that lead and continue through the process.
So Derek, how long did this little piece take you to put together?
After doing a little bit of research of getting all the information needed to pass the details to Google, it was a very short process of building the workflows. The development took, a couple hours, maybe a couple days. I would say 3 days at max, doing about 8 hours a day.
Okay.
So once you have a lot of the understanding the process, the development time within Decisions is very quick too. Especially putting the integrations together, only takes a couple minutes. Being able to drag them out here and be able to pass some details into it is very short development time. Going to the second part of it is what Gordon was describing earlier. We want to enrich these contacts. Again, so Pardot does not have a native integration to Zoom info, so we had to come up with a way to kind of resolve that issue. We do all our leads assignments in Pardot right when they enter. We want to enrich them right as they become a lead, and then we get all the details that we need to kind of continue with our process. So the second step we call Zoom info. So as Gordon mentioned, what we do is we essentially send an email directly to Zoom info to see what details it has. So all we do is for each prospect that we have in this list, we grab the email address and then we send that email address to Zoom info into this contact enrichment. So what happens from there is Zoom info will tell us a couple of things. It will say, hey, we found this lead as a full match, meaning we found details about that person, their title, and then in addition to that, about their company. So, the annual revenue, their industry, their location, and so forth. Sometimes it just gives us company details, meaning that, it did not find anyone anything about that person per se, but it found details about the company. Sometimes there's no match. And that's where, after trial and error, we realized that there were a lot of no matches. So we had to come back to this and try to look into how we resolve it. So the way we did it was we said, if we look at a business email address, so for example, Derek@decisions.com, if we strip out Derek and the @ symbol, we are left with decisions.com. That is typically the website of most companies. So when we do this is we make a second API call to actually get a company enrichment, and we do that by the website. So we split the email address, we pass it into this company website, company enrichment, and then what happens is it will give us details about the company only. So from there, we're able to get details about the contact, the company, and update that lead, in which we send directly back to Pardot.
And again, I'll just point out, we didn't want to use decisions. We first tried the native integration, or in this case, I guess we didn't have one, right? But there's others where we first try the native integration, and then over time we learn that it doesn't work the way we want it to. So then we put decisions in the middle to get it to work the way we need it to work.
That's correct. And some other benefits that we were able to do with this, since we pulled this into decisions, we're able to enrich fields that we were never able to get before with Google. We're also able to normalize fields. So a good example is if I go back to the presentation and I show you a couple different fields we have on here. We have something that we call industry category. So what we did is we normalized a field, meaning that based off the industry, if you look at a list of industries, there's thousands of them. We pass that industry into a series of rules, and we determine if it's in one of our verticals. So in this example, we have one that's called cross-industry. So we're able to normalize that field as well. And then the same thing goes for this business segment. So our sales reps and BDRs work off revenue range. So based on this annual revenue, we can normalize a field called business segment and label it as commercial, mid-market, or enterprise by using decisions as well.
All right, I think oh no, you were gonna walk through the Google integration, or you've done that?
Yeah, I went over it just a little bit.
Okay.
So the lead enhancement, again, with this solution, we were able to save a ton of time and resources. We also reduced response time because with this enrichment, we were able to notify when new leads are in the system when previously we had people monitoring it as well. But yeah, so that kind of wraps up the first lead case, or the use case of lead enhancement, and kind of leads directly into our second use case. So I'll hand it back to you, Gordon.
Yeah. So now somebody has converted on our website. So maybe they've signed up for a demo, or maybe they've checked pricing or looked at a video, and we've gotten their email address, and now we want to assign that to a BDR and or a sales rep. And as we just walked through, as Derek explained, before it goes to a sales rep, we want to know the size of the company, because we have a commercial team, mid-market, enterprise team. And so we want to know, and we will also want to distribute these leads fairly. So we want to rotate them through, and the head of our BDR team, if somebody goes on vacation, he needs to pause or pause people. So he also wanted a way to schedule who gets the leads at different times of the day based on work hours, East Coast, West Coast. And Derek had put together a little screen to help the head of the BDR team manage those inbound leads. So that's what you're going to see here, what happens once we get the lead, to figure out which BDR gets it, and then which person on the sales team gets assigned that lead.
Yeah, exactly. So like Gordon said, really what with this part of the lead distribution is really expansion upon our first use case of the lead enrichment. So as you can see on our little marketing tech stack here, really what we're using for these two particular pieces of the use case are Pardot and Salesforce. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing I'm going to go into my other tab, go back into the decisions portal. So we're going to be going to the lead distribution aspect of it. So really the main problem that we faced here, we wanted to auto assign our leads that came into Pardot and Salesforce. So some leads come into Pardot directly, so that's through anyone that fills out a form on our website. But we also have leads that go directly into Salesforce and kind of skip that Pardot piece of it. So we needed to figure out a way to auto assign leads in both environments based off a specific schedule or specific rules. So there are many limitations that we hit within Salesforce and Pardot, and our thinking behind this was, why don't we build a solution in Decisions? For our particular use case, in regards to our BDR team, we wanted to build something based off time. So what that means is on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we wanted to rotate our BDR team. We had a couple BDRs that would focus on inbound on specific days. So we needed a way to be able to create that. So what I'm showing right here is a dashboard that was actually built within Decisions. So essentially this dashboard was built for our BDR manager to come in here and be able to maintain the schedule, be able to make edits, and kind of change this as we go on. So he's able to maintain this whole process completely. I'm completely hands out of the tool. And we were able to really customize it to our specific use case. And again, there was just many limitations that we hit. You're able to do some lead assignments in Salesforce and Pardot, but they're very simple rules, while Decision has the ability to make very complex rules, or even do something really custom like we're showing here. I'll kind of walk you through the dashboard, right? So this dashboard is built in the portal. Our BDR manager is able to come here, go directly to this BDR schedule, and he has the ability to add new people into the schedule very easily. So the way we did it is we created a form for him where he comes and selects a time. He's able to select a BDR that he wants to add to the schedule, and all he has to do is hit the add button. We also gave him the ability to round robin leads for specific BDRs. So during a specific time, say that there's like 2 or 3 of our BDRs that we're focusing on inbound. We gave him the ability to round robin these leads. And kind of how this works is, we have this whole front end piece of it where our BDR manager kind of manages the whole schedule. On the back end, I'm going to open up another tab and show you kind of what this looks like behind the scenes. Essentially, what we do on a schedule, it's a expansion on the first use case, so it's another step in that flow. But what we do is we pull in records from Salesforce as well as Pardot, and then we go through each lead, and we're able to run business rules to determine who should work this lead that came in as an inbound lead. So again, ours is time schedule. We're able to put additional rules here. But for each lead, we run the subflow that's looking at that front end schedule, running a couple rules and determining if it should be round robin between a series of people or if it should go directly to a specific BDR. So we were able to accomplish 2 goals here. Again, we use the same schedule. We're able to update leads directly or assign leads directly in Salesforce, but we're also able to do this within Pardot as well. So you can see there's 2 pieces to this whole puzzle, which kind of is an enhancement of that first use case.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing here too is that the BDR manager, who's not a decisions developer, he just wanted, one place to go to if somebody goes on vacation, he can change the schedule. He can decide how he wants where the leads to go. but yet keep the automation. So the automation is running constantly in the background, and he can come in here and figure out, who's supposed to get what.
That's correct.
The other, yeah, and the other thing we do too is, for example, we can, additional people at a company, they might already be a customer, in which case, we can indicate we know who's a customer and we can send those leads, update our Salesforce records with a new contact from an existing either customer or opportunity. And in that way, we're not starting from scratch. We're notifying the sales rep, hey, there's another contact from one of your opportunities that is just registered on the website.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize, prior to this too, before we even had this lead assignment in place, we had resources monitoring our Pardot inbox, just seeing when new leads come in, and then based off specific details, they would assign it to the next available BDR. With this automation that we put in place, no stone goes unturned. This really helped us prevent any leakage of missing any inbound leads that came into the system. And when we auto assign them, it sends an email notification directly to that BDR saying, hey, just to let you know, there is a new lead in your inbox. This really helps save time. There's quicker response rates, and it helps saves resources from having to do this manually as well.
All right,
that,
so that's
Gordon. Yeah, that would go into our number 3.
So, the theme here, that's 4 little automations. Again, each of those probably took from a day to a week to build, individually. These next 2 are, we call it extend and expand. So what we did is, I say we, it's really Derek. So he added some buttons to within Salesforce such that a sales rep could do one of 2 things. The sales rep could request some work needed from a sales engineer, or he could ask for a contract, which our contracts team puts together. So our sales reps live in Salesforce. That's what they work in day to day. So we wanted to make it as easy and simple. In the past, this used to be done via email. As we got bigger and we expanded and scaled, it quickly becomes unmanageable where you have too many emails and it's hard to prioritize and figure out who asked for what. Things fall through the cracks. So here again, we built a little automation and decisions, integrated that with Salesforce and also Slack, because we use that tool internally. And we use that to notify people that, hey, something happened or a new request came in. And Derek's going to walk through how we added these integrations within our Salesforce.
Yeah, thank you, Gordon. Yeah, so for this, kind of starting with the marketing tech stack, so we're integrating decisions with Salesforce and Slack here. And really to emphasize on that problem, we had no trackability for when our sales reps were trying to request any demos or proof of concepts from our sales engineering team. Everything was done through email, and they kept their lists within a Excel, which is just not manageable, especially as you grow. So what I'm going to do is actually go back, and I'm going to start within Salesforce this time. So in Salesforce, this is a opportunity that we have created, and this is kind of what our Salesforce environment looks like. We really wanted to extend and expand the capabilities of Salesforce. There's potential that we could have built this here in Salesforce, but that requires expertise within Salesforce, and which not a lot of companies have. Here we have some admins, but when it kind of gets into this complex area, there's a lot of code that you need to do to develop this in Salesforce. So an alternative for us was to be able to build this in Decisions, where we're able to use our no-code environment. It was very easy to integrate this piece of it. Essentially, in Decisions, you're able to build a workflow, and I'll kind of demonstrate what that looks like. But on this opportunity that we have created, we have a couple buttons at the top. What we wanted to do is be able to give the ability to our sales reps to stay in Salesforce, do this all here, and again, be able to track this and be alerted when progress has been made on this this request. So by clicking this button, what happens is it will open a new tab where it actually opens our decisions internal portal. And it pops up with a form that was built all in decisions. And you can see that it automatically brings in details about that opportunity and the account that we were on. So decisions is able to understand exactly, what we're referencing. We're able to pre-populate fields to make it easier to submit this request. And then we have the ability for the sales rep to come in here, answer a few questions, the type of request. They want a custom demo for this opportunity. They want it delivered by end of March. Enter our main point of contact, the time zone, and then some basic details from there. So this is actually submitting a request for our sales engineering team to review it. Once I hit this request, it actually sends out a Slack alert to our team to notify them that there's a new request in their queue. They're able to review it. As the sales engineering team makes progress with this request, it will also go back and forth and notify the person that submitted it, and they're able to really track the request.
Go ahead and submit it there, Derek. Let's get Tyler worked up.
That is right. So here, I'll submit a request for myself. So yeah, pretty much they want a bunch of details about what this request should be. They're asking to figure out some of the pain points that one of our potential prospects or customers may have, and really to get a deeper understanding of what type of work is being requested here. So from here, I could add additional documents, make it very easy to add multiple documents. This is all in decisions, and basically all we had to do was click a URL. So, I could just submit the request right from here. And now you could see that the request was successful and we're able to continue. With that being said, like right away after I submitted this, I got an email alert saying my request was submitted. I get this notification right here that it went through successfully. And now the sales engineering team also got an alert saying there's a new request in the queue. So again, we're really trying to extend and expand the possibilities of using Salesforce. And by doing this, here's an example of one of the workflows to do what this looks like. We put a couple details in and we have a form, which this workflow can now be called as a API or as a button through Salesforce. We could run some rules, update some records directly in Salesforce, and then send out additional alerts as needed.
So yeah, here again, maybe a couple days to a week's worth of work to put in a little automation. And what you're going to see next is when a sales rep requests that a contract be put together. And actually, Derek can explain how it works today, but we also on the list is a further automation that we have planned for our next little piece of work to even further automate that process.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to walk through the contract request?
Oh yeah, absolutely. One second, I apologize, 1 second. Yeah, so with that too, we've done a couple different buttons within here as well. So the example that I just showed was requesting sales engineering work. We also have a couple different ones where we could request a contract as well. So requesting the contract essentially is being able to say, hey, we're making progress on this opportunity. We want to do a proposal for a potential customer. We want to submit a contract, get the process started. So we have an internal sales ops team that really handles the contract. So with this ability, they're able to use decisions again in a different use case, very similar, but really have the ability to just fill out this form directly from Salesforce. It submits the request. They're able to track this all the way through as well. Gordon, do you want me to highlight anything else here?
No, I think this is fine. So this works just like the other request. And where we're headed next with this is that instead of requesting sales ops, the sales rep will be able to do some work on their own,
hmm
and then we will automatically generate the Word document. So we have a contract template. They'll
That is correct.
select, what what part number we're proposing, who the customer is, all of those fields, and then we are going to automatically generate the document such that our sales ops team doesn't have to do that work manually, so that the rep can do it themselves and generate it themselves.
That is correct. Yeah, so some people may know that in Salesforce they have all these additional add-ons. There's something called CPQ, which it's a quote generation package. It's a very expensive add-on. Not a lot of companies can afford adding all these additional add-ons that Salesforce offers. So with using decisions, we're able to do majority of that work fairly easy. And it's a fairly similar process where we have additional button where they could generate a document directly based off this opportunity. So there's so much you could just use decisions with to really expand the possibilities within Salesforce as well.
All right, and that takes us to our final two small use cases, and this is your typical ETL type transactions. So if we go to the next slide, Derek, we've shown on this slide that we can integrate with all of these things, and what we now want to do is save this data to Snowflake. So this is kind of our data warehousing tool. We still have a lot of reports and dashboards that are built in Salesforce, but sometimes you want to see reports that combine data from Salesforce with Pardot data, with Google Ads data to figure out, our ads delivering for us. So there's all kinds of analytics and reporting that we want to do that combines data from all of this. And so we save all that to Snowflake, and we use Tableau as our reporting engine. So again, what I want to point out here is that, we are Decisions, the company, right? But we don't, if there's software out there that does what we want to do, we buy it. It doesn't make sense for us to build things ourselves. Like, it makes no sense for us to build out Salesforce when it already exists. So we use that, but we are using our tool to connect in the ways that we're showing you here today. And in this case, we're grabbing data from all these sources and dumping it into Snowflake, and that's what Derek is going to show you right here.
Yeah, thanks, Gordon. So again, this is our full marketing tech stack. There's definitely a lot going on here, and some of the reasons or some of the pain points that we originally had was that we have a lot of data in Salesforce. Majority of our reporting is in Salesforce, and there are times where we need to combine our Google Ads data with our Salesforce data, and there's no easy way to do that. What we have to do is manually export everything into a Excel file and manually do the reporting from that view. Salesforce is a great CRM, but there's a lot of limitations, and it makes it very challenging to accomplish specific goals. So we saw a way that, one of the main problems really want to emphasize here is that we really needed our data all in a central location to be able to combine it at different times to create different reports and to really see how well our business was doing and where we need to improve. So with using Decisions, we were able to extract all the data from all these different software tools and all their data that they provide, transform it into a way that is understandable by us, and then load it directly into Snowflake. And then from there, what we could do is really do any advanced analytics using Tableau, and then we have our own database that collects all this data over a period of time. Some of the limitations that we hit is like in Google, for example, Google Ads. They have data that is only trackable for 90 days. So that means after 90 days, it starts to delete itself. And we need to capture that data over a long period of time to go back if we ever need it. So there's definitely limitations, and there's definitely limitations in the integrations between tools where not all the data is passed. So it's kind of just really emphasizing on the product, one of the main problems that we faced. So jumping into our last use case, I just want to show you what Snowflake is. And so Snowflake is a data warehouse. So you can see that we have all our different tables in a central location. So we have Salesforce, we have Pardot. Essentially, our whole marketing tech stack is able to live in here. And what we wanted to do here is push all that data that existed in Salesforce. So like these opportunities, all these fields, we wanted to keep in a central location that combined with different analytics or different tables. So we decided to use decisions. So what I'm showing here is a workflow. And what this workflow is doing, it's grabbing our records, our account records from Salesforce based on a query. It's transforming those records. So here, stepping back just a second. So in here, what this is doing is it's making an API call directly to Salesforce based on the query. So the query, essentially, we have this running on a schedule. You could either have it do it, every 5 minutes. You could have it every 30 minutes, every half day, every day. Some of our tables are really often just because we need our data to be refreshed to see how the day's going. Sometimes it's daily. But in this use case, right, we make a query or we build out a query that we send to Salesforce. And all this is an API step. So kind of just describing this, our tool is a .NET product, and we're calling the endpoint, and we have the ability to define what the response is. So someone asked a question earlier about what kind of format do our API responses come in. So it depends. You could ask for JSON, or you could ask for XML. You have the ability to customize what the responses look like. In this use case, we send a query to Salesforce, and then it spits out JSON for us. And we're able to use that JSON and do specific tasks with it. And our backend is .NET as well. So all these steps are built in our .NET library, just for reference. But kind of going back, we're able to deserialize this JSON into a known object, meaning that we're able to recognize what the fields look like in Salesforce in decisions, and we're able to transform the data into a presentable way. Snowflake uses documents. It consumes CSV documents. So what we do here in decisions is once we get that JSON data, we transform it into a CSV document. And then from there, we send it directly to Snowflake, and Snowflake consumes it. We create these subflows that are reusable too. So you can see I have a lot of inputs that might be a little confusing, but essentially this flow is used in about 50 to 100 different flows, and I'm able to build it one time, reuse it about 100 times. But something I want to show here is that I'm able to connect to external databases. So Snowflake does not exist in decisions. It's external. But with the ability to integrate with, API calls or databases, I have a step that I could connect directly to Snowflake, and I'm able to pass details directly to and from it. So it makes it very easy for me to grab data and send it there. I'm sending a file directly to Snowflake. Snowflake consumes it, and then it puts it into the right table that it needs to go. So kind of going through this whole process, it was a little trial and error to figure out exactly how we wanted it. But once we built it one time, I'm able to copy these flows and then create ones for each and every table and reuse it. So the first flow took a couple hours to kind of figure out. And then being able to copy it, I can create 100 new tables in probably a couple hours, which is very challenging to do without having like an ETL tool. So again, we're able to do this, create workflows, pull data, push everything into a central location, and do additional analytics based on the time schedule that we wanted.
All right. Thanks, Derek. So we're almost up to the hour. If, again, just to highlight the key message here is that when you go and you look at what we've built, it all seems like, wow, we had this big project, we had this big scheme. But in reality, we didn't. We were just building small little automations to take care of one little problem and then moving on to the next one. In fact, as I mentioned, we were a bit surprised to realize how many different systems we had integrated with and what all we were doing in our marketing and sales stack here. And if you've seen anything and you want to have, hey, how did you do this? How'd you do that? Could I get a piece? Could I get your flow, your code behind that? Please reach out, sales@decisions.com, and we'll get you that. We'll schedule something together. And look forward, and again, as another plug, mark your calendars for a third week in May at Decisions Days, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thanks, folks.